Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Radnor Township School District Facilities Committee meeting for April. First item on our agenda is introductions and administrative remarks. Michelle, have you got anything?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
Now's my chance.
This is it. Come on down, Rachel.
So I'm Rachel Ebby Rosen. I have 2 children in middle school and a son in high school. I'm here because my friend Michelle Leonard said that vaping in the high school is on the agenda for today, and there's talk about getting dogs perhaps. And I just wanted to comment, perhaps this would be better for the large meeting, that in addition to that, I don't have a feeling one way that we also really need an education piece, that the kids don't realize that it's carcinogenic. They think because it's not nicotine, it's not dangerous. And I really feel that there's no mention of it in the health curriculum at all. And even though I know the health curriculum is being looked at to be updated, I don't think we can wait to get the books. I think we need to find some relevant, updated, engaging information, not just a pamphlet that's going to let these kids know. I think you can bring coaches in. My son's an athlete, very upset that many athletes that he knows are doing this without realizing. So I think you need to bring the coaches in, have them realize the dangers. And I think you need to have parents come in, because a lot of parents also feel it's not, it's harmless. And I think you can't just say, come to this meeting. I think you need to get the parents when they're already coming, like for a 9th grade orientation meeting or a 10th grade SAT meeting. So I think you need to kind of get the word out the same way with cigarettes. And, the Surgeon General made a statement maybe 2 months ago saying that vaping in high schools and underage kids is a new health epidemic. And it's also a gateway from vaping to cigarettes to marijuana to other things. But I'm also really concerned about cancer in addition to other things. So I know kids will break rules. I know kids are drinking and doing drugs, and there's all sorts of, we're never going to stop everything, but I think we need to at least try. So I don't have a feeling about the dogs. I salute you, and I just wanted to put my 2 cents in to say that this is an issue that's very important to me and to other parents and to students in the community. So thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Cindy Spurtle, 106 Valley Forge Terrace, Wayne. I have a couple of questions from the prior meeting that brought up in reviewing the minutes. And the first one is new business that Mr. Madden brought up in last month's meeting, and that was looking into the tri-party agreement for who was responsible for the bridge. And is there an answer to that question yet? If so, what is it? The second is I had asked the results of the safety inspection of the bleachers. As of the meeting on the 20th, Todd said he had received an answer on the other side of the field, not the side that needs to be repaired. So
We got the interior bleacher report. We did not get the exterior
Still?
bleacher report. The gentleman who did the inspection has been out on an extended sick leave,
Okay.
so we're working to try and get that resolved. And we also had Gilbert Architects sent someone out to look at the bleachers to help us get a better cost estimate. We don't have that yet, but we hopefully will have that shortly.
Okay. The interior report, are they safe?
I have not seen the reports, so I can't comment on that.
Then we'll follow up on it. Thank you, Michelle. Agenda item number 3, the Radnor Trail, is going to be addressed again, it looks like, for a brief period of time. A question was raised at the business meeting by one of the board members on the designation of responsibilities for insurance, the maintenance of the trail, et cetera, between the township and the school district. My question, has any of those questions that were raised been addressed in the last week since the business meeting?
I mean, we addressed them, not in the last week, I don't think, because we addressed it
I
way
think
prior.
It was brought up in the business meeting last week.
Right, but,
Yeah, I think-
those issues had been resolved way before that. It's just that I don't think that board member knew, because we wouldn't,
Okay.
we
It's
agreed
a-
that we wouldn't even go forward with this unless they took all the responsibility for everything.
So there is no responsibility to the
No,
district?
there's a whole,
Right.
hold harmless and all that.
That-
Maintenance
And
is
Cindy,
all-
our solicitor, will be here tonight to talk about that issue, so.
Okay. Thank you. And then, for facilities, in the budget, I know that that's finance, and there are 2 finance committee meetings potentially scheduled for April. But the question, once again, is, since we haven't heard much and the capital projects are not included in the budget, when will those be addressed in facilities meeting?
Hi, Judy Sherry, Governor's Circle, Newtown Square. My first question is about parking again. According to the minutes, 174 parking spaces were given to students in a lottery at $75 a space. That equals $13,050. The February revenues from student activities gives a $12,600 amount under 6,700 revenues from student activities. It's on this page. What accounts for the discrepancy between the 12,600 and the 13,050? And also, who is parking in the 3 spaces that were not given to nonprofits this year? Or were they given to students?
That's for next year.
I thought they were not given out for this year. Is it for next year, not this year?
We did not give them
This
For
year,
next year.
for next
So,
year.
years.
okay, so
the
that
winners-
revenue is not there. Thank you for that clarification. That makes sense to me. On the corner of Lancaster Avenue on the school district's property, I presume, there is a large sign, sorry, it didn't print out that large, posted, and it says, and that's why I'm bringing it to facilities and policy, because it's on your ground, I assume. It says Radnor High School Mattress Fundraiser, open to the public, Sunday, April 9th. And I couldn't read from my photo, but it's either 10 or noon to 5 p.m. in the auxiliary gym, which is also facility use. It has a Radnor logo on it and a cheering mattress. This sign raises a number of questions. On the district and high school website, nothing that I found was listed about the fundraiser. So I'd like to know who approved it. Was it the principal, the superintendent, the school board? And how is the fundraiser operating? Does the district get a specific payment, or is it receiving a percentage of the mattress sales? Are there mattress sales? I mean, it's a little hard to know from the sign. What company is supplying the mattresses? How is the high school using this money? Did the mattress fundraiser participants complete a permission form for those wishing to use a district logo or image? I learned that from the communications survey. If you're going to use the logo, you need to fill out a permission form for that. The district's 913.1 advertising and sponsorship policy defines advertisement as a message that promotes or markets any company, service, facility, or product. Mattress is a product. We can all agree on that. And messages that include the following are considering advertisements, a call to action. I don't know if a cheering mattress is a call to action, but it might be an inducement to buy, which says it's a fundraiser for the Radnor High School mattress fundraiser. The guidelines state that all individuals, organizations, corporations, or their agents, this is in the policy, wishing to advertise in district publications or in district published media must submit a written application, receive approval, etc. Is this true of signs that are posted on district property? So I have a lot of questions about this, as you can see. And my final comments, which I'll be interested in hearing some response. My final comments are really about another private company, Catalyst, that does high school SAT and ACT prep. It's a private company. I went through and looked at high school newsletters and PTSA communications, and about 10 different online publications include information about this SAT private company, Catalyst. They offer like 2 weekend boot camps, one in the spring, one in the fall, in our facilities, in the high school and in the middle school. They charge $175 a person for the boot camp, and there's different descriptions about the proceeds. In one description, it says all proceeds go to the PTSA. And in most of the others, it says some proceeds go to the PTSA. So the fact is that we're using our facilities for this private company. It's being really promoted by our publications. It's also, the PTSA invited one of the Mid-Atlantic supervisors to come in and present at a PTSA meeting. So related to this, I wonder, have the administrators evaluated this service? Because it's the one that if I'm a parent, I'm thinking the school district, although on one of the 10, and I believe me, here are all the pages I found it mentioned on. On one of the 10, it says, note, this event is not sponsored by RTSD. But that only appears like most of them don't say that. So the impression I would get as a parent, I think, is, and I think most parents would get the impression, is this is the private company I want to use to prepare my student for the SATs and the ACTs. And so that's why I want to know, do we evaluate this? How many students participate in it? And since most private companies don't survive on charitable donations, how much money is donated to the PTSA? All or a portion, or what does a portion mean? And does Catalyst pay any rent for our facility? Because the thing about it is, I mean, if the district determines that this is the absolute best way of preparing students, then they should say that. Because otherwise, private companies that are in the area have to compete against a company that's getting all this advertisement, this location, and they have to pay for rent. They have to pay their mortgages. They have to pay utilities. And I don't think this company does. So I'd like some clarification on this, because it seems like kind of a way to dodge the guidelines of our advertising policy by having the PTSA promote something like this. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Oh, here's like a thing that they talk about, outsmart the SAT. And the presenter, by the way, won the Tom Cruise look-alike contest 3 years in a row. So he obviously is popular.
Thank you.
Roberta Winters, 326 Williams Road, and just for a sense of history, and I'm sure Chuck can validate this, drug dogs are nothing new in Radnor. We've had them before.
Is that it?
They were very friendly when I was there.
Okie dokie. Is there any other public
Chuck, anything you want
comment?
to share?
Anybody else want to respond to that?
We didn't know that was huge.
They've been here before.
Moving on. Approval of the minutes from the March 20th meeting.
Look good to me.
Okay. Minutes stand as written. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 1, which is drug dogs in the high school.
Thank you. I'll ask Mr. Dan Bechtold, our high school principal, to come on up and join us, and for him to share some of the rationale for why we'd like to move forward with implementing and having an opportunity for drug dogs to be part of our program at the high school. So I'll turn it over to Dan to start off.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Radnor High School and the Radnor Township School District have been very proactive with attacking problem that faces high schools across the country. And 2 years ago, we implemented the Safe Homes initiative where we connected parents and guardians and allowed them to take a stand publicly for we're not going to allow student parties in our house that have drugs and alcohol. We've brought in speakers, and we've partnered with the speaker series with Chris Herron. We brought him in to talk about his struggles with substance abuse and how it cost him his MBA career last year. Lieutenant Andy Block came in and was brought in by Ask just a couple months ago to speak to parents at a coffee talk about warning signs and what to look for. And we've got, if you've seen the flyers, we've got the drug take back event that's coming up that we're partnering with the Agnes Irwin School. So we've been very proactive in really trying to attack a problem that's a national problem. In accordance with Policy 226 and with the support of Mr. Batchelor, Radnor High School would like to bring drug dogs to the high school for unannounced sweeps of campus, and our priority is really to keep our kids safe. We want parents and to be able to send their students to school and students be able to come in and understand and have full assurance that they're coming to a drug and alcohol-free school. I think that we've got wonderful kids, and I think that we've got a great high school. And the question that I anticipate is, Dan, do we have a significant issue at the high school? I think this is us being proactive. I think that I did have an opportunity to speak to Conestoga's principal, Amy Meisinger, and they do the same thing. They bring in dogs for unannounced visits. I know that Pencrest does it as well. I think it's a reality, and I think that we're not sticking our head in the sand, and we're going to go and keep our kids safe when they walk in the doors. So that's where we'd like to go with this.
One of the things I admired about the high school administration with their interest in going in this direction was they want to send the message to all the students, message of deterrence, but also send a message to the students. Sometimes when students don't see things like drug dogs present, they start to question, or if they know things are going on with students, they start to wonder, boy, does the administration know about it? What are they doing? And I think that our students will appreciate, the vast majority of our students will appreciate knowing that, we're not going to tolerate drugs in the school. We're not going to tolerate vaping in the schools and things like that take place, and that we're going to do everything possible to really protect the students and protect that school environment. And when we do things like that, and I think in the conversations with the high school administration, I think our students are going to appreciate that. They're going to appreciate that as the adults in their lives, that we're holding students accountable, and we're making sure that this, we don't want our students involved in drugs and alcohol anytime, but especially obviously not during school hours. But we don't want it, we want to also use this as an opportunity to educate our students again about the harmful effects of all these activities. And for the time period we have them during the school day, we think this would be a good opportunity. So I commend the high school for their interest in wanting to do this. There is some information for the board, just the policy, our policy 226, you do have a copy of. Our policy does allow us to do it. So the last part of our policy, on the last page of the policy, on page 2 of 2, we already have it within our policy for the administration to utilize drug dogs. So it's nothing that we have to change policy. There is information about one particular company. We would be looking at a couple of different options, but the company that some local districts are using is this company called InterQuest Detective Canines. They would be able to have a drug dog come to the building for roughly around $275 a visit. Obviously, we would not, we wouldn't announce the day of the visit to everyone, but Mr. Bechtold, Dan has been talking about doing an assembly beforehand to let the students know that we would be doing this. He was looking at a communication plan with the parents and the community to let them know we're doing this, why we'd be doing this. We wouldn't be advertising the date, but we would be advertising that this will be happening. Our hopes would be to have a visit, to do this within this school year. Would be our intention to get this up and running, and the pieces for the any questions the board has. If we do an assembly, the assembly we would share with the students what the dog does. They'd have an opportunity to see it. We want it to be just part of the school day, and not something that has to be disruptive to the school day. The dog would do not only searches of lockers, book bags. It could do searches of the cars, vehicles as well that are on campus.
Why would we hire a private company instead of getting one of the local agencies? When I was in high school, the I forget if it wasn't Radnor because we didn't have dogs, but one of the other townships did, and they would bring in their dog. We'd show up. I think it was the state cops would show up with the Radnor guys and go through the school.
We could, and and we're going to investigate both. There's a cost to both. There's a cost to either, so there would be
you
a
have to
cost.
pay
Yes, there would be a cost, and so whether we go with the police or a private company, there would be a cost, and we're really open to that.
Our township police
Our
guy, I know
township does not own. So Radnor Township does not have actually
they
drug-specific
don't
dogs.
have drug dogs.
Yeah, we've discussed with them. They have canines, but they don't.
Yeah, I know they're explosives dogs,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if they were drug dogs too.
And we've discussed with our law enforcement whether they are open to us going with a private company or going with working with other authorities, and they will support us, with whichever direction we choose there.
I know you guys probably don't know, but why did they stop at some point in the last 24 years since I got out?
I can't speak to that.
I know, right? Well, no, the class above me was the one that.
I think it might have something to do with Mr. Madden's story. No, kidding. I'm joking.
As someone who has been a teacher when they have brought in the dogs, it was very beneficial for my students to have a visit by the dog. This was actually a police dog, and by the officer to explain what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and the amount of respect that the dogs need to be given. And it really allowed our students to be a little more relaxed than if they were to all of a sudden have, the dogs coming in and going through. Not that a private sector dog is a little different than a police dog, but I think this is a good way to start, and I'm in favor of it.
So I want to make sure that we give fair warning to parents and students that we're going to do this so that there's no surprises. Then if people want to make different choices, they've been forewarned. So.
And Michelle, we have money in the budget that could cover this, right, in some fund. Is that right?
We believe that we can transfer some money to make this happen.
Thanks.
So the dog gets a positive hit. I mean, are the Radnor cops going to be escorting with the private dog, or is this a school
So when
district
we
thing?
go and have a student that makes a poor decision and brings drugs or alcohol on the campus, we follow our protocol with getting statements and contact the superintendent, let him know where we're going. We follow our handbook. It's clearly delineated as a level 4 violation. Contact the parents, get the parents on the way, contact the police, give them and we go through that. So, one of the things that we have supports in place, we have a counselor from the Caron Foundation that does drug and alcohol counseling that's there 3 days a week at the high school. We have the supports to help kids that come forward, but also we've got rules and we've got consequences for bringing drugs and alcohol into our campus. So if we would have someone that would have a positive hit, we would certainly contact their parents. We would certainly contact the police.
Yeah, I just was more curious if the Radnor PD would be with the dog at the time, The private guy would be handling it, but then one of our officers would be with him also.
We could do that, but we probably
Yeah.
wouldn't. If
I
we
mean,
were a
it's
private company, we
obviously,
probably wouldn't
yeah.
have them
Yeah,
there
okay.
at the moment.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I guess when you begin to address, like you said, we're going to be proactive, and I know we're at the high school, and I think we need to look at it before it gets to high school. I mean, the drugs don't just begin to happen one day. One day it's not here, the next day it is. And it needs to be addressed through the educational process, and I'm sure we're doing that. But maybe we need to look a little bit more at what we're doing so we can be more successful. And bringing the dogs in to the middle school, I think would be a conversation that we need to have after we see what happens up here. Thank you.
And I'll just jump in to that point, the vaping in high school. So we've been progressive in addressing that. That's been something that's cropped up recently, and we started to get feedback from students. I spoke with our student government leaders about that, and we increased patrols in the bathrooms. So every hour to hour and 15 minutes, we have somebody going through, their administrator or security guard walking through the bathroom. It's really an issue with the boys' bathrooms, and we really haven't had concerns coming from female bathrooms. So we've been walking through to try to address that. Additionally, we've got a discipline review committee that has been working this year, spearheaded by Dr. Anthony Stevenson. They have a meeting coming up in the end of April, and one of their points of discussion will be additional steps that we can take to address specific things. And one of the things I know they'll be talking about will be vaping and how we can either put additional rules in place or else get the educational component right so that they don't do it in the first place.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being on top of this. Being proactive.
Thank you.
Could I just ask you one thing quick?
Certainly.
I know it's out of order, but the mattress fundraiser, is
Yes.
that the high school? Is that for students or
Yes, that's track and field.
it's track and field fundraiser?
Yep,
Or
it goes
it's
to their booster
the
club.
kid- Okay.
I approve the signs.
Yeah.
So
Just,
that was me.
okay.
Benefits our kids.
Yeah, I drive by it every day. I never really noticed. I assumed it was one of those school groups.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. Agenda item number 2 is the Radnor Way parking.
Raider Road.
Sorry, Raider Way parking.
So I can address this issue.
I was going to say, why did Dan just leave? It's high school parking. I know, right? Yeah, run away.
Well, he hasn't left yet,
I
so
know.
we can invite him back up to the microphone. So we've been having some complaints about the parking up at the high school, specifically parents blocking entrances as they're dropping and exits as they're dropping off students. So
After school hours.
after school hours in the evening, most of the traffic problems have been occurring at pickup in the early evening around 7:30, 8 o'clock. So we've been working with security, high school administration, and the athletic director, as well as the coaches. Some of the people that are using our field, of course, are not school districts, but some outside agencies. So we've been trying to communicate with parents the proper way to drop the students off so that everyone can ensure picking up their students safely. And that's our primary concern. We want to make sure that students are being picked up in a safe and orderly fashion. So it was a little chaotic when we first started to initiate some of the changes. We have locked one of the gates so that students can't cut through that area. We have a designated drop-off spot. And I'm happy to report that at the end of the week, the traffic was flowing much more smoothly up at the high school. So we hope that that continues. We typically have this problem in the spring and in the fall because that's when a lot of the outside practices are taking place. We do have a couple of alternative options in the event that this plan did not work. One of the suggestions is possibly taking the one-way exit road by the high school parking lot, and instead of having that be a one-way exit, have that be a one-way entrance, so that the traffic would back up on the district property as opposed to Radnor-Chester Road. We would not implement that at this time of the school year. We would look at that over the summer and implement and communicate that to parents if we were going to do that, which we're not sure that we are. But if we were, we would look at that over the summer months so that it would be implemented with the start of school. So hopefully the traffic patterns will continue to flow more smoothly, and we won't continue to have problems. We do have security out on site. One of the suggestions that we also had was that some of the sports groups put together a schedule to have parents help monitor that traffic, which is something that we would definitely like to consider doing in the future as well.
All right. Well, thank you. So I'm pleased to see you've already kind of addressed this and been monitoring it, so.
I just have one question.
Anybody else?
What is the time in between when one group is being picked up and the other group being dropped off? Do you know what the time in
15
between?
minutes.
I think they're relatively close together. That's another thing we talked about, staggering start times and pickup times. Because if you stagger the start time, then of course you automatically stagger the pickup time. So we have talked about that briefly. We've talked about the possibility if the traffic wasn't getting under control, that student athletes would have to be dropped off at the main entrance of the high school and meet their coaches in the library. That's not something that we would like to do, but if we needed to, it's something that we could consider. The security officers that were doing traffic patrol had not previously been wearing safety vests, so they weren't easily identifiable as our security people. So we now have them wearing their safety vests when they're doing traffic control so that they are easy to identify.
Well, one of the things that we asked the community sport groups to do was to have more time in between the drop-off and pickup. And we actually enlarged our soccer field. And part of the discussion was that they would be willing to do that.
I do not know,
So-
Chuck, if they're doing that currently, but it's something I can follow up on.
But what I'm saying is, we expended a lot of money on that field. And
So
for
did they.
so did they, but for the safety of the kids being dropped off, that was what
Well,
our
there's-
main concern was.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, I got two kids
Uh-huh.
play Radnor lacrosse right now for the Radnor Rec League, and there's 15 minutes between. The issue is that, you know, like, we pick up kids from 6th grade and we're dropping off kids from 8th grade. I mean, the 8th graders, you know, they can wait 20 minutes till their practice starts, so that's no big deal. The problem is the parents, you know, they pull in, the curb's painted yellow, it's clearly a fire lane and the only entrance off of Radnor Chester, and they just sit there anyway. I mean, it's, you know, the age-old human nature problem. You know, you have to educate people, but the people that are going to read the emails and read the directions on how to park aren't the problem. It's the people who don't. And then, you know, you have, I mean, I've been there and I've seen the security guards just sit in their car, you know, down by the swimming pool, and they just sit there for an hour and a half and they don't do anything, you know. And then on the other hand, you have a guy that took the marked security car and parked in the exit lane, you know, blocking the exit out. And it's like, you know,
That did not help the problem.
yeah. So, and then you had the security guy park on the other side of the street one time, so he was in the entrance lane, so then people were driving in the outbound left-hand turn lane. You know, you need the guy out of the vehicle, on the road, in the lane, telling people not to park for that 20-minute window when people are coming and going.
So
Do
it
we-
sounds like an education
It's
issue.
an education problem, but
Each
it's, you know,
time
it's human
lacrosse
nature.
is starting up
There's a-
now, we got a new group of parents to educate.
Right. The problem is that it's
Do
human
we-
nature. There's a non-trivial number of people that refuse to be educated.
And we were part of the problem, too. As Mike said, our security officer was blocking the exit and the entrance on multiple occasions, and they were not visible. So we have been educating our staff as well as to how we can make improvements to the traffic flow and make sure that everyone arrives safely to their parents' vehicle.
I'm kind of disappointed that we still have this. How many hours and millions of dollars were spent working on that parking lot, and to hear that basically this is kind of the same thing we heard before we did anything about it. So
Well, I can tell you
I'm-
from personal experience, it's a lot better than it was
okay, well, that's good to hear.
25 years. I mean, trying to make a left out of there when you were leaving the high school at 2:30 was impossible because there was no traffic light.
Anecdotally, we have, I at least had one parent comment that things were a little bit better very recently. I was at a meeting last night, and as I was telling Michelle earlier, I couldn't resist the urge, so at about 7:15, I drove by the high school. Not that I'm looking to micromanage parking, but I was curious for myself, and things were flowing more smoothly. So all the things you brought up, I know Michelle and security have been addressing and looking at to try to improve this. I think one of the things I commend both Michelle and Dan is for bringing in all the groups and communicating with the groups, and it was somebody from one of the groups who put forward that suggestion of maybe we should look at doing our parking a little different, our direction, our flow. And that's something that I think this summer is worth looking at. I don't know that we want to go that direction, but that might be a solution as well. So I think we're trying not to have this be a Groundhog Day issue, as I call it, that keeps coming up. We're trying to tackle it, and I think people are trying to do that.
Maybe a map.
for the update.
Distribute a small map of, this is the road in, and these are the lanes out. Don't park in the entrance.
We actually did
People
that.
need a visual
So that,
to send out to the Radnor lacrosse and soccer clubs and all.
that was sent out by one of the coaches out to the staff showing the traffic pattern. He had an aerial view of the high school and he showed the traffic pattern. And I think that was helpful for many parents.
You could send that to the youth groups to send out, because there's a number of parents that need that.
Moving on to agenda item 3, Radnor Trail.
So we thought Mike Christofko was going to be here when we started to speak about the Radnor Trail, but I don't see him. We had included this item on the agenda in the event that he had some additional information that he wanted to share with us. He was going back to the township to get some additional information after our last meeting, and I have not heard from him in regards to that. In regards to the tri-party agreement, I'm going to address that now since it was brought up earlier in public comment. We have located the tri-party agreement regarding the bridge, and that is in the hands of Mike Christofko. He's reviewing that currently, and he will report back to us at a later date. And then in regards to capital projects that was brought up, we are trying to schedule a joint our committee of the whole meeting to discuss budget. We just haven't finalized the date in April, but it will occur at some point in April. And once we have the date, we will be discussing capital projects at that meeting as well, and probably in meetings in May as well. And that's it.
Michelle, just for your knowledge, the Park and Recreation this Thursday, we're having a meeting about the trail system, and I'm sure our little piece of that trail will be discussed, and anything that we get from that, I'll bring back to you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Part of that, it's related to that, but the township keeps talking about extending the trail over Martha's Brown's Woods, which I'm pretty sure the school district owns. Have they been in contact with you at all about doing anything on our property again, or are they just doing what they usually do and just assume that, people will roll over for them?
Originally, there was a little piece on that trail that they thought they were going to bump out that would have been on our property, but right now they're just using the P&W right away, which I don't think that's the P&W. So they wouldn't come off of that, so they won't go on our property.
Under Martha's Brown's Woods?
Right. That's my
So we
understanding.
can't sell it
And
to
I
them
know
'cause we
that-
can't use it?
We could sell it to them, yeah.
I know that this trail is tied to a grant that they've received.
Right.
And I know that that grant does not reach up there. So it's a very specific area.
Well, no, but there's a different trail system.
Yeah, right.
The
So-
extension.
Yep.
I know the Martha's Brown's Woods back there, and we can't use it for anything.
Yeah.
So
So,
hoping
but-
we could sell it to them.
I tried.
All right. Making it through our agenda.
What comment?
We're down to a second public comment. Is there any other public comment?
No, thanks, Lydia. Susan Stern. Just wanted to follow up on 3 things. With regard to the guard dogs, our policy on searches, from the conversation, it sounds like to me that we were planning to do searches possibly while students are in the building. And there is a limitation in our policy on searches because it's limited to storage areas, not children, not students. So I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do if if a search dog comes upon drugs on the student's body, because that's not covered under our existing policy for searches. That's one thing. With regard to Radar Road, Radnor Chester Road is a state road. We had to work hard to get that highway occupancy permit, and the way the exit is designed, I think I can't imagine that we're going to be able to get an entrance into there. And I think if you guys look back at what we talked about when we were on facilities together and talked about expanding this field and what this traffic was going to look like and the concerns we all shared, we put forth some very specific suggestions about closing the gates, that are right there at the new field to force parents to have to pull further down to Radar Road and have the athletes get out close to the concession stands, that if those parents have to pull down. But I wanted to make you aware that I was there Saturday, and we are allowing parking along Radar Road now on the weekends, I believe, but the sign that we're using to do that says drop-off only. And so we're continuing to send some conflicting messages out there.
There's a sign that says, there's 2. drop-off signs that says, and it's about the length of a Chevy Suburban. It says drop-off start, drop-off end. 'Cause it's one spot, because I know I saw the same thing
Right, but they're
too.
using it, it's all just being used as parking.
Yeah.
There's no drop-off.
Oh, I know. And then people were getting tickets.
Anyway.
'Cause I was there Saturday, and people were getting tickets out the wazoo for parking in the entrance line.
So, I continue to stand by this. This facility is first and foremost our students, the high school students, and if the community groups can't abide by the rules, we have to re-examine their access to the field. I can't remember the thing. Oh, and back to the drug dogs. I just wanted to say how much I agree with Rachel Rosen that I'm supportive of the drug dogs. Dan's got to do what he's got to do, but really this is a good opportunity for us to look at the health curriculum that we have and make sure that it's actually serving what the high school, administration and what the high school students are dealing with and in real life. And if there is ways that we can really radically modernize our health curriculum to do that. But I do think we still have an issue with our policy with regard to the searches. Thank you.
Hello, Judy Sherry. Just wasn't clear exactly what happens should the dog sniff some drugs or something in a student's locker. I heard that parents and the police would be called. I don't know if they're called simultaneously. I would hope that if something were discovered, that the student would have a chance to meet with the administrator of the building first before the police were brought in and the student end up with a record that maybe could have been avoided or something. That would be my feeling. I'd hate to see something happen prematurely. And I wondered if this idea of the drug dogs was brought to the student council for their input as to how they felt about it. Are there any plans to do random searches and drug testing on teachers? 2? I know they do have a union, but the students don't have a union, so I mentioned that. And getting back to my original comment about the sign that says Radnor High School fundraiser, mattress fundraiser. It doesn't say track and field booster club fundraiser. I'm wondering, is the track and field booster club part of the district? That's just a simple yes or no question. Are they part of the district?
Just what are you trying to say, Judy? Because I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, so just...
I don't think it's a
Where are
putting
you
people on the spot. I mean,
Well, is it by the booster club or the kids for the fundraiser?
It's for our track and field team. Benefits our kids.
yeah, but it was stated that it was the booster club that was organizing this, and that isn't the high school. This sign says Radnor High School mattress fundraiser. So if it's a booster club, that's a different story. And honestly, I think it's false advertising, because when I read it, I thought, well, maybe they're pulling out money from under a mattress to pay for the bleachers or something. I mean, I couldn't even figure it out. I haven't seen anything like that before. And I thought, well, maybe I looked on the website under mattress to see if I could discover anything at all about this. And the only thing I could find was the show Once Upon a Mattress, but that was several years ago, because I thought, oh, maybe it's like an advertisement for Once Upon a Mattress, just kind of a funny way of advertising for it. So, I really question whether, is this what we want from booster clubs out along the street?
Personally, for me, yeah.
Advertise.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see a problem here.
Look, so
My
noted.
opinion.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate your comments about it, I'm just telling you, as a person that lives in the community, for me, it wasn't giving the message correctly to begin with. And I don't even know if it went through the proper steps of approval. So So I bring that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Hello, Michelle Leonard, 852 Briarwood Road. I just wanted to say, first off, thank you to Dan and everyone else who is being proactive to protect our kids at the high school. I definitely support the drug dogs being used in the high school, and I did wonder if, and I know you all might not be able to answer, but if they would be able to pick up on vaping or tobacco, or what can the dogs find? So just a question I had. And also, as far as community being notified parents, I know it's come up before that sometimes when it's truly only affecting one school, like maybe the high school, so we don't always put the word out to all the parents, we get a lot of speculation and a lot of questions. So I'm just wondering if we do decide to go the route of using them in the high school, maybe letting parents even in the other schools know that, just that it my heads up, so they're not hearing, well, there were drug dogs at the high school, and then everyone starts talking about why and what that might mean. So just some feedback we've gotten before about things. And I also just support what everyone said too about, starting with the education first, that maybe we're preventing some of these things instead of in health curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michelle.
For bringing those things to our attention. Do we want to quickly loop back?
If he has anything to offer.
Can you join us up at
For
the
the
table,
good of the
please?
cause.
We have the Radnor Trail on the agenda. If you had anything that you wanted, that you could update us on?
The only update is the draft documents that I had sent around that the committee should have seen, I guess, within the past week or so. All of the changes that were marked in there in red line have been communicated to me that were acceptable by the township solicitor. So at this point in time, I guess that we're in the position where we could move this matter forward for full board approval, or one of the other options is we could wait until the township approves and signs off on the document and then have the school district approve it.
Yeah, so my preference would be to let the township approve it first, and then we can sign.
Okay. I'll communicate
second
that then
that
to
too.
the solicitor.
Why would we not go ahead and move it through as a symbol to expedite this whole process?
I
that
think
we're in
we
favor of
can.
it?
I think we can move it through for our review. I would prefer that the township sign before we execute. But I think moving it through for board feedback and public comment is a good thing. And we could start that process if we believe we've got a form that's acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dave. I would just rather have them sign, we don't want to sign it and then have them be like, well, we're going to sign it, but we're going to change this, and then it's back to square one.
I also agree with Dave and Mike.
All righty, that's democracy at work here. Okay.
Try, but you had.
Are you done?
All right, so go ahead. Do you want to?
I was just going to, before we finish, I just wanted to circle back to one of the questions, but is this the appropriate time? No, I just want to, and I can touch base, Susan, we can talk offline, but from our read of our policy, we are fine, that our policy would, our policy as written now, we would be able to bring in the drug dogs and we would not be violating our policy, but I'll talk to you about the individual language, but from our read now, we should be fine.
Great.
I think that's it, right?
All right, I think we're adjourned until May. Thanks, everyone.